Good evening and welcome to the Monday, July 10th Muscatine School District Board of Education meeting. Madam Secretary, can you please take roll and help us determine the quorum, please?
Sure. Director Connard, Cooney. Here. DeBeat.
Here.
LaRue.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Sure. Quorum is present.
Thank you. Our next item on our agenda is the Pledge of the Allegiance, and tonight we have our awesome third grade Muscatine Park class. So please stand. Thank you, guys. Thank you. It's really awesome. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is Citizen Speaks. If anyone in the audience wants to address the board, please step to the podium, state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes. Per Iowa code, we cannot respond or engage in any discussion during the board meeting, but I want to remind everybody that anyone can reach out to any of us via phone calls or emails or anything like that. Anyone would like to address the board? Okay, thank you. So with that, we move into our board targets, goals, report. I will list 3 of them, and then we go back. We have 2 presentations tonight, but let me first list them. Item A, students will graduate prepared for post-secondary options, and we have 2 items under that. Item B, Muscatine schools will utilize resources effectively and equitably. And item C, students will learn in a positive and supportive environment. So we go back to item A, students will graduate prepared for post-secondary option. And the first one is Iowa State University. And please, don't mind me if I don't pronounce it right. Stella Adelante update by Mr. Jesse Garcia, please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jesse.
Thank you.
Did I spell that wrong? Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
And then am I just controlling off of here? Just spacebar. Cool. So my name is Jesse Garcia. I work through Iowa State Extension and Outreach. The title is Latino Outreach Coordinator. And if you aren't fully familiar with it, the position exists. It's a makeup between a partnership through the County Extension Office, the school district, and MCC also plays a role in creating it. I gave the fuller update last year, and I believe most of you were here to hear kind of the inception to where we're at. So I really just picked up with what we accomplished this year and some of the highlights of that. So going into it, I'll kind of roll right in. After we gave our presentation last year, we finished off the summer doing some life skills learning. We spent a day out at Camp Abe Lincoln, just going through a variety of different things, learning how to survive out in nature a little bit. A pretty unique experience for most of these kids who all live in the city. So it's not every day that they get to go out and be in nature in this way. And that's one of the big things that I try to do with what I put together for programming is experiences that have some sort of educational value, but that also are a little bit out of their day-to-day ordinary, even if it's not going super far away. You know, we're 20, 30 minutes away, but it's still something that to them, a lot of them have never had that experience, or it's their first time doing some of these things. A little bit later in the year, one of our outings was on Veterans Day. In the Quad Cities, there was a world premiere for an infantryman from Hero Street, which was a locally shot film with local cast that, through personal connections, I also happen to know. And I saw the value in this opportunity. It played on Veterans Day at the Putnam Theater, and if you aren't familiar with Hero Street is a about 2-block street in Silvis, Illinois, that during the Second World War had 8 casualties of all Latino, Hispanic servicemen, and it is the most dense populated for, I guess, what am I looking for? In that area, that was the most amount of people from one area that gave service in the entire country. So being only 45 minutes away, that seemed kind of important to understand a little bit of local history, given the cultural makeup too, and the screening was really cool because there was a lot of surviving family of all the service members present. They gave a lot of background information, not only on the people themselves, but the makeup of that community and how it became what it is today. There's also a present day memorial that we stopped by to see and pay our respects to as well. And then we were lucky enough to take advantage of the Putnam's STEM wing and do a little bit of STEM activities as well, and take advantage of what was there. We also ended up on the front page of Hola America, which is the leading or the biggest Hispanic Latino newspaper in the state. It's based out of Des Moines, and they were there present for the screening as well, and we just got to communicate. Some of my students are interested in marketing and communication, so they got to have a quick chat with Mr. Tarmasius, who's the one of the publishers for the publication. The JA Titans Unidos team. So this group of students is really unique and really cool. The second gentleman from the left, his name is Eli Vasquez. He is not one of the students that I have worked with through Salir Adelante and up. We had personal connections when I got into the role, but he was an MHS student. And when he found out about what JA Titans was, he approached me to see if I could be the mentor for the team, and then he put together his teammates, and we worked at it. So JA Titans is a business simulation that students compete against locally and then regionally for an opportunity to win scholarship dollars. It's always hosted by one of the larger companies in the area. Last year it was at Han. This year we were at Kent Corporation. And we also get paired up with a community business mentor. This year his name was Mr. Scott, and he worked out of Kent as well, and he was in their marketing department, I believe, and he helped these students understand a little bit more about business when they go into the simulation. It is full pace, being in a market, being in the cell phone market, and they go through research and development, production, they hit customer service, and marketing. They go through all aspects of what running a business would be, and they actually compete amongst each other in the simulation to try to outdo the other teams, and there's steps along the way to make it happen. This is the second year we've been the only team to represent Muscatine schools. The pool is pretty large, made up of Wilton, West Liberty, and the Durant schools. They all take like 4 or 5 teams. So in place-wise, we didn't place very well, but what was learned in terms of how they progressed through the sessions was a lot of real life knowledge in terms of business, which is some of their aspirations into what their careers and what they want to do. To keep going on Eli, just because from there, the rest of his senior year after this point looked like helping him with scholarships and helping financial aid and helping him make those final decisions. By the end of it, he is planning to go to MCC. We got him into a program that fulfills the last dollar scholarship, so he's almost covered all the way there. And it should be a fast track to what he wants to do, which is a career in real estate. We also finished off the year by pairing him with a mentor that is local, that is in the business currently. And I'm also very purposeful of looking for people in the community that are reflective of the students that I work with as well. So she's a leading realtor in the area, but she predominantly serves the Hispanic Latino community. So I think those things are very important for these kids to see that they can have a place in the community. Along with that, we do a lot of volunteering to help community events happen. Celebración de las Artes was a collaboration between a lot of folks, mainly led by LULAC and everybody else that sits on that board. But my students, for this event, we helped all the youth that were present decorate sugar candy skulls and give back that way. There was a really large turnout. It was, I think, one of the first things we did at this year that was a little bit more well attended. I think people were still a little hesitant to come back out at the beginning of the year. But there was a really good turnout for this. We got to talk to a lot of people, and the other groups that I work with were also present and got to be a part of it. We were also joined by students from West Liberty that my students interact with frequently through our 4-H involvement, as well as students from the Quad Cities who were part of the Ballet Folklorico that was present that day. The students also chose to assist with the haunted halls that was put on by the Chamber of Commerce. We've built a pretty good relationship with the staff there in terms of fostering these opportunities for them to get hands-on experience and involvement in the community. They helped with being cast members, and they also were some of the tour guides. It was at the now older Central Middle School, so some of them had attended it within the last couple of years before it had closed. So it was kind of nostalgic and a neat opportunity for some of them to go through it, especially all decorated and stuff. They seemed to have a pretty good time. There was also a really large community turnout for that, so a lot of people got to be interacted with. Recently, they helped the Stanley Center's open house. We did a sustainability activity called Seed in a Cup. It was actually a seed in a cone, ice cream cone, that can then just biodegradably be put into the earth and be planted. And it was a unique opportunity to talk to a lot of younger folks as well and just have something to do with them that didn't take a lot of understanding as much as, the seed, and then it would grow, and eliminating the cup to make it sustainable. But we got to interact with a lot of people through that. And then they also helped at the recent Almost Fiesta Fest. We had a local artist from Iowa City come into town, as well as a local luchador wrestler present. So the kid activity for the day was to have kids make and paint their own luchador masks, and my students assisted with helping them cut them out, get their paint, get the markers and all that stuff, and clean up. So we try to be active, we try to be visible in the community, because the way I see it as well, the more that they are seen, the more other younger kids know that there is something to look for when they get to middle school and high school. We also intentionally went out and tried to get those shirts that they were in one of the other pictures, but here they're all actually wearing them. So we try to be representative, and we try to have a consistency of getting recognition for what it is, for what the group is and what we do. In terms of our after-school activities in the 4-H Club, we meet consistently throughout the year. A lot of these activities are taken from a curriculum called Ricochet, which I got trained in the last year to facilitate. And they're built around leadership and building a sense of belonging, which the program had been present in the schools in the past. I think Central Middle School had it for a bit, and so did West before COVID. Hadn't come back since, but the activities that I use are adaptable to both the middle and the high school groups. So with that, we have done various activities with multiple groups, but we also this year reached out to St. Mary St. Matthias, Bishop Hayes, and we led a little bit of a longer curriculum with them. And I just mentioned that because although they aren't directly involved in the school district, those students end up at our high school, and I see that as a beneficial way to interact and connect with them. As the 8th graders were doing their high school tours, they saw me in the building a couple times, and I could see that the connection was there, for that they knew already that I was an identifiable person that could help them along their path while they are at the high school. Again, the activities are also, they're meant to be fun, but they're also meant to have a purpose. Shooting for Decisions was based around, the the probability of, taking a big opportunity, taking a big risk, or going for a smaller risk. And along with that, after we do these activities comes a reflection conversation on why did you choose what you did? What happened when you did that? Was it the outcome you expected? Was it what you had hoped for? What could you do differently? So it's not just about doing the activities. There's meaningful conversation that comes in at the end of it that long-term we hope they can reflect on when they have to make or are faced with larger life decisions. We also meet every other week in between to do what we just call homework help, but that after-school session is dedicated to me checking in on their power school with them one-on-one, seeing where they're struggling the most, what can be done right now, what can be immediate action, where there might need to be some intervention, and then also allowing them to have the space to kind of just connect as well once all of that is taken care of, and again, build a sense of belonging, because I feel very strongly in the fact that if they don't feel like they belong anywhere at school, then they are a lot less likely to go every day. In 2023, it took a little bit of work, but we did see 6 families and 7 students graduate from our workshop series. The workshop runs for 6 weeks. We tried to kick it off in the fall and just had a bit of a struggle with just conflicting schedules. There's a lot going on with sports in the beginning of the school year, so we found a little bit more success in February. We're hoping, or at least our plan from right now, is to go into the year leading with a plan for February again for next year, and growing a little bit more. It is also important to keep in mind that a lot of what we do during these workshops is very deep and personal and meaningful conversation. So I am the first one to say that I struggle with not being able to see or say that we got 20 to 30 families, but at the same time, I know that the connections with these 6 are meaningful and deeply rooted, and not just with the students, but with the parents, in terms of they now feel, and I would like to say it's mutual, someone that they are connected to in the district that can help them when they need it, which I think is very important for a lot of people. We also attended a few leadership conferences. Dream Iowa was the Youth Leadership Summit. They hosted at Indian Hills this year, and along with that, a lot of these leadership conferences come with opportunity to explore the campus. So we go for the leadership conference, but then the workshops are also based in the actual classrooms. So they get a little bit of experience of what it is to sit in a lecture hall, what it is to be in a lab setting, depending on what the conversation is. We also attended the Quad Cities Youth Conference. We also went on a college visit to Loras, and that was really unique because they have a very strong student-led Latin organization that, again, purposefully we took the time to visit with them to hear their stories and how they feel that they fit in on that campus and why they chose to be there. Again, I just think it is powerful and impactful for students to hear that, again, to feel like they belong anywhere. The last one we attended was the Latin Youth Summit at the University of Iowa. We went back to Iowa in the spring with middle schoolers, thanks to Krista Regenetter. 12 of our middle school students were able to participate in the first annual International Day at the University of Iowa. They spent the day learning about Stanley's 17 sustainability goals and just different topics on how that can be achieved. A big portion of them partook in this Sustainable City Challenge, where they each took on one goal and then placed it together to see how a city could be fully sustainable when everybody contributes a piece of the puzzle. At the end of the year, we did have our family night celebration to finish off the year, and we also planted our goal garden. The idea behind it is that we planted the seed, and we also spent that night talking about careers and finding your strengths or finding your interests. And then the rest of the summer, we've been working on what is called Finding Your Future, which is a curriculum through 4-H that helps students explore likes, interests, building portfolios, building resumes, and finding those skills. The capstone to the end of the summer is that I hope to, or we look for an interview or an opportunity for the students to be in that career field that they choose, to really bring it full circle and see if, one, is it what they think it is? Do they really enjoy it? Could they really see themselves doing that? Again, and being intentional about putting them in situations where they can see themselves being reflected in that position. And at the end of the summer, we're hoping that the fruits of the labor have paid off and we can make salsa with what we grew in the garden. And the goal is to bring the parents back, celebrate it that way, really round it all off. The County Fair Bucket Brigade is our most recent project, so each student paints a bucket and then we fill them with different types of horticulture. There's a theme, which is called Sunset at the Fair this year. So every student's bucket was a little bit different, all surrounded around that theme. And then next week we will take them to the county fair. They'll be judged, but then they all get placed around the fair as beautification items that make it look nice. They all did an incredibly good job of painting. There was one that really was awesome today. I wish I had taken a picture and got it in. But again, another opportunity to do something fun, but also learn a little bit. We've been learning about horticulture. We've been going kind of through this gardening thing, learning how to tend to a garden. So they themselves are the ones that every week when they come to our meeting are the ones taking care of what we got going on. And they're also doing kind of a progress. So seeing where their goals are, seeing where the garden is, and kind of being able to put something physical to that. I added this as information that we were able to get thanks to our partnership as well with Aligned Impact Muscatine. This data comes from the National Student Clearinghouse. We were able to report that for 2021, and I'm not sure if I had this data in the presentation last year. I don't believe I did, but for our 2021 graduating class, 62% of our students continued on to post-secondary. For our 2022 class, the number raised on to 80%. And you can see that, like I said, the numbers aren't huge in terms of the families and students we're serving, but I think that correlates to the meaning of the impactfulness for the smaller numbers as well, in terms of the ones that do continue with the program. And I think that's the biggest key, is continuing with it all the way through. There was one more, sorry, I apologize about that. So this is data that we are able to obtain through existing agreements. To get information further than this is not necessarily something that is easily accessible. So just through communication and being able to kind of keep up with the families of some of the graduated students, what we know at the moment, there's two students from our very first cohort that are university juniors. They will be going into their senior year. So that is our very first group of kids in 7th grade that ever did the program. Of that group, 2 of them are still at university and being from juniors to seniors. At least 4 are known to be in some sort of esthetician program, whether it be hair or cosmetics, but some sort of program to work in the esthetician field. And we have 2 students in the pipeline to graduate from MCC, but we don't have any current MCC graduates. That is just, again, what we are able to obtain through just keeping up with the connections, not necessarily, we don't have direct access to that without them kind of sharing and answering the phone and that type of communication. This very last slide is just, I didn't really want to put it in, but I thought it did have value. I don't want to center it around me. I want to bring the focus on the attention to Jared's view for the position, because Jared is a very good student all around, not just in the classroom, but in the band room and on various different activities and in the community. He's very involved, not just in the projects that we do, like everything that was mentioned earlier, volunteering-wise, but he also is involved in different clubs and organizations that also give back to the community, and a lot of that is self-directed, but I've only worked with Jared for 1 or 2 years, so The Excellence in Education Award is something that he got nominated for by someone who even I believe has probably done more for him than I did. However, he chose to have me as his representative because of the impact that he saw from our interaction through this program. So I'll let him speak on it a little bit, if it all works.
All right, name, high school, and your current post-secondary institution or plan.
I'm Jared Lopez. I'm from Muscatine High School, and I plan to attend the University of Iowa for bio.
What and who helped, and what barriers to enrolling in post-secondary education did you have?
Well, as a first generation college student, I've been grateful to have lots of help for my process to college. Some of the people I can think of are Trio Upward Bound, my mentor from there, Kim. She's done a phenomenal job with like answering my questions and like giving me tips. Also, Iowa State Extension Office, Jesse Garcia, Claudia, they've like once again like giving me tips, answering my questions. They've taken me to colleges. They just gave me like lots of options and made sure I feel prepared for next year.
Again, what is your plan, maybe with a little bit more detail, and what are you currently doing?
Yeah, well, I'm going to Iowa for biology for 4 years, and on the pre-med track, after those 4 years, I plan to apply for optometry school or be a physician assistant. Yeah, so hopefully be an optometrist in the future.
And what are you currently doing to help you jumpstart that?
Yeah, I've been applying to like numerous scholarships to help me pay for college. Here at my high school, they offer dual credit classes for Muscatine Community College, and I've taken advantage of that opportunity, helping me get a head start and saving me a lot of money with my tuition.
In general, or in your personal situation, what changes would you make to the way this transition happens from high school to the next step?
I feel like I've been, so far I've been doing a good job, but like a tip I would give myself or to other people is to like, don't be afraid to like reach out, and that's something I need to remember to like, I'm not alone, there's people who can help me and guide me, so I just need to reach out to other people.
Any other thoughts or comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, as a first generation college student and son of immigrant parents, it can be pretty overwhelming taking the next step to college. But like I mentioned before, you just need to reach out and ask many questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Jared.
Yep.
So that pretty much brings us to the end. Again, I just threw that in because I think it means more if you hear it from him than from me saying it. And yeah, that's all I really had. I do have a student present with me today. She's actually Jared's sister. She was a freshman this year, is going into her sophomore year. So if you'd like to talk to her at all or ask me any questions about anything else, we are open to the podium.
Hi, I'm Kenya Lopez, and I just finished my first year at MHS, and this is my first year in 4-H Club, and yeah.
I have a question that has to do when you had talked, and maybe you were a part of that, when you had that full business opportunity where you were talking that trying to think of where it was that you said they were at, and you didn't do very well, but just the fact that the kids were there. And I try to think of that from the standpoint, what did the kids think about that? Because that's a lot of business information from what you were telling on there that they received. How did they do with it?
At the end of, well, I think they were frustrated because we prepare for it for like a month, because it is a lot. But at the end of the game, at the end of the day, the simulation is made to be game-like. So they have fun playing the game, even if the results are coming as we prepare. However, yeah, the day they showed up, they wanted to do better than we did. Again, part of it was experience. We've only done it now twice. The other teams that have been going with the same teacher, has been taking their class as part of curriculum, I would suppose, for multiple years now. So they know tricks that we haven't caught up to yet in terms of, what we're looking for and stuff. And then I think that was the missed thing. They were frustrated with not doing better than we did. But I think overall, that is the realness of that type of opportunity in terms of how difficult is it to really start your own business, because that's a conversation I have with a lot of them, is that I'm going to go into business or I'm going to own a business. So being able to do these things is it's just to put it into perspective. So I think that would be the general answer to that.
Yeah, that was pretty well what I thought, but I like how the fact that you're giving those students those kind of opportunities.
Yeah, and I will mention, so the gentleman I talked about, Eli, had started it last year. He carried it on to this year. One of the team members from this year is already looking forward to next year, and they already have started kind of building so it's turning into a thing that the more they understand it, the more they want to do it and really kind of be focused into it. So there is that side to it, I guess.
Well, Jesse, first of all, millions of thanks for the updates, sharing this information with us. We really appreciate that. One of the things that whenever I deal with students, regardless what level, I think one thing that strikes me the most is self-belonging. I mean, if you really provide whoever you are working with such feeling like that, definitely after that everything becomes possible. So thank you for everything that you are doing. And I don't know if anybody have any comments or anything you would like to add, but we really enjoyed your presentation. Yeah.
So, Jesse, what do you see as the biggest roadblocks in you doing whatever in meeting any of your goals for the program, personally, for the community? What are some of the roadblocks? And I ask that as kind of a pointed question. It's kind of a leading question, because my follow-up is going to be then, what can we do to help? Not help put more roadblocks up, but eliminate those roadblocks.
I appreciate it, because I did have my just dot jots here of what I wanted to say in regard to that, and I didn't kind of really know how to bring it up.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Just because you're leading into something very powerful that I've realized recently, in terms of even how I do what I do and know what I know and figure out solutions to the situations that I'm faced with. So what I'm going to bring up is stuff that I've seen, and I recently had the opportunity last week to meet with a group of Latina moms that I feel very specifically is a group I'm tied to. I'm going to mention a couple other things that are a little bit more broad, but some of these main comments come from there. The broader statement is to the sense of belonging. One of the activities I did this year was also work in the English language learners room at the middle school. And we brought in these activities to foster that sense of belonging, even amongst a group that none of them have the same native language. And you should have seen how my one student, who was the most, he's the only one, felt like part of that group, because we were all striving to speak in English. Everybody had the same challenge in front of them, but from always being out on the side all day to that 1 hour that we were in that room, and he was included and having the same issue as everybody else, but it wasn't an issue because that's what we're trying to do, is get you to, be a little more proficient in English. That I think was really powerful. So taking that in terms of that, it's not the things that I say or what I do isn't, my focus is the Latino community. The problems and the barriers aren't specific to the Latino community. I think they're far more specific to immigrant community. And I say that also through, last summer I took a separate position through Upward Bound, and I got to work with a more diverse population of MHS. And a lot of the same feedback that I got was to the points of what can be done. There is a immense lack of diversity inside of the school district in terms of roles and who is around. I am a very small percentage of who students in buildings feel that they can actually identify with and tell some of their barriers to. I think that is a huge thing, that some of these students aren't even being fully truthful with who they're speaking to for not being able to find that trust in the reflection piece. Another part of it is something that is, transverse in terms of parents needing more support as of late, and since Tony's been in the position, the multilingual stuff is great. I think it could be taken a step further by recognizing that there's a large Liberian community in town and that they need other things, that we have, Ukrainian students in the system now, and that they need that resource as well. So just being more aware of the full diversity, and that we have the things in place. We're already currently doing things. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but can the things that are being done be applied to other groups as well? Because I feel like a lot of the times the answer is yes. It just takes a little bit more manpower or hands that I have. And another thing would be bilingual acceptance in academic areas. It's kind of a term I made up, but what I'm leading to say is that I've had newcomers who are tremendous at math, but if you look at who they are as a student based on their English grade after only being in it for a semester, it doesn't come across as they are where they really are. And that is detrimental to them, because now we are telling you you're not smart enough just because you don't know English. However, at science, at math, you can excel if we gave it to them in Spanish. And I know that a large part of that is building the English proficiency, but are we doing more harm than good by telling them that that mark isn't good enough just because they can't do it in English? Could they do it in their own language? Could they take the ACT in Spanish and score 36 versus the 21? I know the English is a piece of that. However, that is kind of just the general statement onto what I'm saying. And I think just the capstone would be, it applies to students. The parents were really kind of talking about themselves, but I will present it to you for what I think you could do, is that parents also are coming that are professionals in their own country, and to my knowledge of the community, in roles that we are needing in the community. However, for lack of license, it doesn't add up, and we have sitting talent that maybe can we help them get a GED? Is there something we can do about that? Can we present it to them in a language that is, do we really need them to know it in English when we need people that can serve in Spanish? These are things that I think about and keep me up at night, and I don't have the power to change, but since you asked, I share them with you in hopes that a step can be taken.
Thank you.
you.
Appreciate your candor.
Any other question or comments? Well, thank you again, Jesse, and hopefully we continue this communication. I mean, it's very important because when we work together, we all win, and that's very important. Thank you again.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Well, our next item,
Oh, she wanted
You just say thank you.
oh, I'm sorry.
Let's stop going.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you, everyone, for hearing Jesse and also me.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. So our next item on the under board targets and goals report is the summer melt program. Ms. Catherine Aleno, please.
Hello, my name is Catherine Arellano, and I'm here with Claudia Artola and Becky Hewitt. We're going to talk about the Summer Melt Program. So the Summer Melt Program was created by Align Impact Muscatine County in partnership with Muscatine Community College, Muscatine Community Schools, West Liberty Community Schools, and Iowa State Extension Office. And it was created for students who need advice or more guidance on what to do after they graduate high school. Our program began on June 1st, and it continues throughout the whole summer. Our services include financial aid assistance. All of our mentors are FAFSA trained, college enrollment, career exploration, and post-secondary mentorship. The services are offered online, and most of our mentors are also bilingual. So these are our 2023 mentors: Claudia Artola, Student Success Facilitator; Jesse Garcia from Iowa State Extension; Catherine Arellano, me, also from Iowa State Extension; Jasenia Pacina, a current MCC student; and Becky Hewitt, a teacher at MHS. So today we'll be talking about the schools served by the program, the types of services requested, grade level of students we help, student diversity, the program's impact, and yearly comparison.
Okay, so last year there were roughly 20 students that were served by this program. You can see the majority of them were from Muscatine High School, a few of them from West Liberty High School. We had one from Wilton, one from Durant, which we don't generally advertise to Durant, but they did reach out for help, and then one who was a current university student at that point, who did reach out for help. The services that they requested, you can see the majority of them were looking for post-secondary enrollment. Additionally, financial aid, filling out FAFSA, getting that scholarship aid, and then career exploration, which involve things like internships and taking personality and career aptitude tests, those kinds of things to help them move to the next step in pursuing work as opposed to going on to college. And then this is just looking at the age or grade level of the students that utilize the program. 10 of those students were already graduates. Again, this was during the summertime, so recent graduates. We had that one college student. 6 of those were going to be incoming 12th graders. We didn't have any 11th graders. And then those stragglers, a 9th and 10th grader who caught wind of the program and reached out for help as well. And I believe Claudia said that one 9th grader just kind of got some help preparing for what high school was going to look like.
So we started this program listening to students, right? So at AIM, we decided to ask the students, what do they need, right? And majority of them said, we don't have that help during that time between after they graduate and before school starts. So majority of them were like, we're doing summer, we do not have advisors. A lot of them are first generation students. A lot of them are free and reduced lunch, basically meaning that they might not have all the resources as their counterparts. So the only thing that we asked them in the survey when they started the program was if they were first generation students. As you can see, our numbers are almost pretty even. 42 students said yes, they were first generation students. To know, and we were not able to gather the rest of them, but we are really hoping to expand this to our audiences, which this program was mostly intended for. We are really, really glad to say that we almost were able to help the student. I think around $28,000 we were able to retrieve and access to the students. I divided it in 3 categories. We have $14,000 in lifestyle scholarships, almost $13,000 in Pell Grants, and we also were able to access Muscatine Community Foundation scholarships. As you can see, it is working, and it shows not only through numbers, but also through what students are saying, which is something that I have after. So yearly comparison, we started this around 2021, and as you guys can remember, not a lot of people were willing to come out or do a lot of stuff during 2021. We were still in the midst of the pandemic. It was a very chaotic time, in my opinion. So it was kind of difficult to get it started, right? So at the beginning, we only had 8 students. We were only able to reach 1 academic institution served. This was Muscatine High School, so all of our students were from MHS. We were only able to do 1 full Pell Grant awarded for just 1 of these 8 students. Compared to 2022, we were able to see 20 plus students. I think I ended this chart around the beginning of August, but no, actually, at the end of mid-August, right about August 19, I would say. But after that, we still got some students after. So I would say from 20 to 25 students were served. We were able to serve around 5 academic institutions. We were able, just like Becky said, Durant, Wilton, Muscatine, West Liberty, and somebody in Scott County as well. We were able to provide to the students and access them 2 full Pell Grants, which was really, really exciting to see because we had 2 full riders going to Muscatine Community College. And those and other 2 also were awarded $2,000 scholarships. As you can see, it might not seem like a big number to you, but it was, we doubled our numbers, almost tripled if you actually look at the data. So we were really happy to keep on growing. This is the 3rd time that we're doing this program. And yeah, we were really excited. We have 2 more, we have a couple more mentors this year. Jasenia and Becky are joining us this year. You can see Jasenia was not able to join us, but we're really, really happy to have mentors that are first generation and also bilingual in English and Spanish, and also students that have gone through college, are going through it, and have also gotten their master's, etc. We have all the stages that you need. So we have a couple of student opinions here. This is not a picture of an actual student, but it's just for you guys to get an idea. So we have Belen Medina from Muscatine High School. She said the summer MEL program has helped her stay motivated and continue in school because she feels supported by the staff. And then we also have a West Liberty High School alumni. She was able to pursue her career, her whole college career at MCC for free. She was one of her Pell Grant students. She says, thanks to the summer MEL program, I was able to fill out my FAFSA and enroll at Muscatine Community College. I think that is all that we have for you guys. Thank you so much for having us. We are really appreciative of your time.
I do have a question for you. It kind of goes along with a little bit what Jesse said and what John had said about that part about belonging, because needless to say, through our normal process at the high school, we have information about FAFSA and all of that. But in other words, some of these students are not feeling comfortable talking perhaps that way, is what you're saying, and that they're finding from this angle a much easier way to be able to feel like they belong with it.
Yeah, I think so. I think also our connections with the schools really help. So we are able to go into the classroom with Indra Schulteis at West Liberty High School and Elise Kress here at Muscatine. And I think they do feel comfort in like knowing that they know us and we'll be able to help them throughout the transition while they can't. And I think it also does help of seeing yourself identified, you know what I mean? Like somebody has been first generation, somebody that you feel comfortable talking to, that if, for example, you're missing some sort of documentation or something like that while you're enrolling, won't judge you automatically, or you won't have the assumption that they will judge you. So yeah, that's what we've been finding so far. Sometimes also their resources just kind of fly through them, like just they don't see them, they don't look at them, they are busy taking care of their families, or, you know, they don't have all the access as everybody else. So yeah, that's kind of what we've seen so far from my point of view.
Good.
And Claudia, I was planning to ask a question. I think you answered my question because I was planning to say, well, how would they connect with you or you connect with them? And apparently you are saying that you go into the classrooms and connect this way. So
Yeah. We also have a lot of flyers around town. Hopefully you have already seen them. I'll put it on your to-do list to find a flyer of ours. So they are also able to reach out via our QR code or texting us. We have you can make an appointment with whoever you would like to be with. So yeah, we have flyers, social media. Thank you, Tony, for that. So yeah, we're putting ourselves everywhere for students to be able to reach out to us.
good. Thank you.
So what are the long-term goals of the program? And again, how can we help?
Yeah, so we're hoping to keep this growing. Of course, we're hoping to get as many students as we can, either in trade school, community college, or any of that sort. And I kind of want to know, like, what are you looking at? Are you looking at long-term, like, student view or long-term program?
I'm just looking from your
Or my
point of view.
point of
What
view.
are
Okay.
your goals? How are you going to judge that you're being successful? Because I would guess that most people create goals so that they can have success.
Yeah,
How
so-
do you identify a success, and what can we do to help that?
So far, we've been measuring enrollment, FAFSA completion, a degree completion. I think that's so far, or if they were able to get a job. We also been able to, because we are able to help out with resumes and everything, we also count that as a success. I don't think we measure that, but the other three we do measure. Yeah, I would say numbers, like participation of students, that's also a success. We're looking to see if we can double, triple, and be able to provide the best services. How can we help? I would say something that has helped us out a lot is actually getting into the classrooms and being able to get familiar with the students. Having a lot of our materials, and I think maybe the staff being more aware of these services. We went around sometimes a couple of the classrooms and we visited to ask if we were able to present, but a lot of them had never heard of our program. It was mostly like advisors or counselors that had heard of it. A lot of teachers didn't know about it, so I would say maybe some promotion in that area. Yes, that's so far what I've thought was one of the barriers that we run into, just letting people know that we exist.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, thank you. Great presentations tonight. I mean, really, we enjoyed listening to you and enjoyed, all the information that you shared with us. And as Mike did mention, like, how can we help as a school board? Please feel free to connect with us anytime you wish.
And John,
Let's just say a little something more.
I had something
I
else
think
right
Jesse-
before. We were also able to create this program thanks to a grant through Strive Together. So I thought I had it there, but it's not. So they were able to provide us with funding that allowed us to get more mentors and, more connections like MCC and MHS. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Jesse has something to say.
Just because I'm also involved in this, and those last two questions you asked made me think of things that I should have said that I didn't. Could you remind me yours one more time, Mrs. Cooney?
Yes.
What was your question?
What
What your initial question to her?
Yes. My initial question to her had to do with the kids didn't see perhaps that some of that information was already out there. But again, a lot of kids are kind of like that anyway. Oh, yeah, and there's some information about college, blah, blah, blah. And they don't think about it until much later or whatever. But on this case, though, a lot of times students may not feel comfortable, whereas then now with through the MELT program, they may feel more comfortable approaching.
Right. And then so to circle all that back to kind of some of the things that I was talking about then in terms of who students can feel connected to. And in terms of barriers, I think one of the biggest barriers just like flat out is just language. And I say that because, again, from that conversation I had with parents, there are parents that want to be involved, but they don't feel connected to the school because they know that if they show up, there's not going to be someone there that they can exactly have the conversation they're looking to have, maybe without a translator, and some of them don't even know if there's a translator or not, so it becomes just language in general is the biggest barrier. Because back to the summer melt, I think another part of the success of that, and with some of the students that I've worked with, is that the parents can come in and understand what we are doing, especially when their information is also being involved, going all the way to how much they feel like they trust someone and what they are even willing to share. So all of those things tie in together, and in terms of success, I know they didn't mention it, but from the data I've seen, there's about a 20% difference between enrollment and graduation from students in the district. So I think that, in short, seeing that number decrease to the number of students graduating to enrolling right away into something else, but with that in mind, also taking into account that there's different levels of success. And I think the goal is stated is just making sure that they are prepared for life after high school. So there's different caveats to that in terms of, what that means. But I think in general, seeing kind of that number shrink a little would be.
I will take a little bit with that, and that is things that I worked with the housing department for so long. I remember that there were times when children, just younger students, I mean some even younger students, would come in with their parents that were there to get help because they were the translator. They were taken out of school just so that they could be there. The point being that it made me uncomfortable from the standpoint that child should not have to be out of school and was to be doing that for their parents, but I could tell the parents weren't comfortable enough with not only their English, but, how I may talk with them or whatever, just because of the situation that they're in and they have to ask for help and everything. And so anything that can be done even more for the parents of those students, I think could be very helpful.
I just want to say, I teach at the high school. I teach English 12 students. I make this part of my English 12 curriculum, starting the FAFSA, starting college applications, and even my native English speakers. I have a lot of them who they say, well, I can't do the FAFSA. My parents won't let me. My parents don't understand it. I had an honors student 2 years ago whose mom came to me in a parent-teacher conference, and she's like, thank you so much for doing this with her, because I had no idea what to do. And she was her and her husband were both college graduates themselves, but they didn't know how to start the process. So it's not just the non-English speakers who struggle. There are a lot of parents who have no idea what this process is. That's part of why I make it part of my curriculum, but that's why I also got involved with this, because I know walking up to graduation, I still had a ton of students who didn't have a plan, who didn't have an idea, who never finished what we started. And so this kind of grabs all of those kids that walked out the door without a plan. So that's why I think it's great. But also, yes, I appreciate the idea of that it's not just the students who don't get it, the parents don't either.
Thank you.
And John, I just want to, again, thank everyone for being here tonight. We're very fortunate. We have some great programs to help students and family in our community, and you've heard some of them tonight, and some of them mentioned Upward Bound, IJAG, certainly the Stanley Center for Peace, and some of that is just doing a better job of communicating that out, and I think to Jesse's point, that falls on us as I think we've gotten better. We're still a long ways there. And part of that too is we have to do a better job of not just always saying, come to us, right? Mm-hmm. And as working with Tony, we've done some things with registration where we're trying to get out into the community to help support parents through that registration process. Parents, we've done some outreach for our daily desired experience surveys. Like, how do we, instead of just waiting for somebody to call us and say, I need help, how do we go to them, right? And let them feel comfortable and get support out to them. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can continue to do better there, and some great points raised tonight, just in terms of some simple activities. And maybe those are things from an admin team. We could have some, Jesse or somebody come and give us some professional development on just some small things we can do within our schools to continue to promote that. But again, one of the things, and I think Jared is a great example, the student there, of the more opportunities, and I think Jared was a part of several of those opportunities, right? The more opportunities, the more kids we're going to catch and help support and be successful. And so again, we've got a ways to go, but we've got some great things there to support our students and our families in this community, and things we should be very proud of.
Indeed, indeed. And as I mentioned before, when we work together, we all succeed and win. So thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, anything else before we move forward? Okay, thank you. Moving forward, according to our agenda, the next item is the possible action. The following items are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a director so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence from the agenda. The items are 1, minutes, 2, bills and claims, 3, employment recommendations, 4, tuition out contracts, 5, Unity Point at Home Service Agreement, 6, teacher candidate agreement with WGU, 7, interfund transfers, 8, policies with no minor required by law changes, and 9, third and final reading on policies. What are the wishes of the board?
John, I do have a couple of questions about number 8, some of the policies, so if we could pull those, I would appreciate it. It shouldn't take long, I just want some clarification or questions. I just have questions.
So you are suggesting to pull item 8 from its sequence, right?
So I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda in lieu, sans number 8, policies and no minor required by law.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So first of all, that means vote on the motion, and then we go back for discussion. So all those of you who are in favor of the possible action, which means the consent agenda, with the exception of item 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. We go back now to item 8, and Mike, please go ahead.
Yeah, so the anti-bullying, anti-harassment policy, as I read through it, let me see if I can even, I got them all up, so I just have to find the right one. Should we think about either defining what bullying is or harassment is, or should we direct in this policy, if you have questions about this, go to this policy? I mean, should there be some correlation, some guidance? Because most of the time, if somebody's going to be looking at this, they're going to want to know, 1, how to file a complaint, 2, where to go instead of, I don't know, I think they just could be, because it's not defined in this policy.
On page 2.
Page 2,
Did I miss it?
harassment and bullying mean any potentially repeated electronic.
I did miss it. All right.
I was with you for a minute though, because I thought I read it in the handbook and not here, so.
Well, in the handbook, I
There's a lot of
did, in the
things.
handbook, I didn't see it either, so, sorry. All right.
And part of the pieces, Mike, that are in here just relate to some of the updated legislation, that if there's an incident that occurs, that we have 24 hours to notify. So those
None
are
of the
pieces
new
that are-
additions I didn't have an issue with. It was just more, and again, I'm trying to go back and forth with the handbook and with that part of it. But at one point, we didn't have the same definition that the state offered for what bullying was, the fact that there had to be an imbalance of power and that there had to be repetition to it. So that would, and I just know that if somebody's looking for that, it needs to be easy to find. And I think that's with all of our policies. If it's going to refer to something else, if it doesn't talk about it directly, we should probably put in there how they can find their answers. I don't know if that makes sense. the professional growth, what's the difference between the 401.8 and 407.4? Again, I mean, that it seems to me that the new 407.4 is in 401.8. That's what we added, right? Is that the same thing?
And I'm going from memory, but I think that we needed to add so that we covered everybody and not just licensed professionals. Would that be, or not just certain professional development? It needed to cover everybody, all employees. Is that?
Okay. I would go back to 403.12, same thing when we're talking about child abuse and neglect, and we're saying that everybody needs to report. Should we have the contact information or the number that you have to call? Because I can tell you, as a mandatory reporter, it would take me sometimes 30 minutes to find something, and it shouldn't have. Just if we had the phone number of who you call or how you make that report, or even where you need to go to, if you have to make a report, go to this place to look at it, to find that information, should that be part of this policy? Because I don't think it says that, as mandatory reporters, we have to make a phone call to DHS.
I wonder, Mike, can we create a hyperlink to Iowa? Because
Right.
we have to
Right.
report it to the Iowa Department of Human Services. I mean, we can
Right.
certainly create
And
that as a
that's
hyperlink.
how easy can we make it? Because it's not, if you have to make the report, it's not fun to do, but there should be no barriers. We can't have any barriers to it. And I'm not saying that this is a barrier, but I'm just thinking it's here. Somebody's going to go child abuse and neglect. Here, I know we have a policy. I find the policy. I can click on this. Here's what I need to do. Even if it's the steps that somebody needs to go through, because I can tell you that I've had teachers, paras, people call and say, what do I need to do? I know I'm supposed to do this. What do I need to do? So maybe we need to write a procedure with it too, kind of like just link it to it, and here's the number to call, and here's the steps that they're going to ask you. Here's the quest, because DHS has a very specific set of questions that they're going to ask you. It's nice to be prepared for those questions. So, other than that, I would say let's approve them. Or those are the only ones I had really questions about.
So if I've got it correctly, what you're saying is more as the procedural kind of like form or something along that way, not as in the content of
No.
what we have to do, just as in
No, I don't have,
how it needs to be
no,
done.
these are beyond me. It has nothing to do with content or what the policies say. It's just how can we make them more user-friendly because if people are looking into these and reading them for a reason or searching for them, they have an issue or they have a concern that they want to have addressed. So let's not create barriers.
I agree, because if they have too
So-
many barriers, they'll stop.
So it is doable. Like, for example, if there is a form, you can put like a link to that form and also like a contact information, who to contact. That's my understanding from your point, right?
Yeah, I think we can create a hyperlink for the Iowa Department of Human
Okay.
Services to make
Okay.
the
Okay. So
Kind
if
of follow
that's
up
the
there.
case, yeah, if that's the case, we need to go back and approve this item with the change, all the recommendations. So we need a motion to,
I would make a motion that we approve the policies with the quote, policies with no changes or minor recommended changes with the recommended changes that we just discussed.
so we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to have any more discussion or? Okay, those of you who are in favor of approving item 8 in our consent agenda, policies with no minor required by law changes, including the recommendation presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, thank you, thank you. Moving forward, our agenda, we move to item K, to approve the contract award recommendation for the Muscatine CSD Jefferson School addition. What are the wishes of the board?
I'll make the motion to approve the contract award recommendation for the Muscatine Community School District Jefferson School addition.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, those of you who are in favor of approving the contract award recommendation for the Muscatine CSD Jefferson School addition, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. Next item is to approve the agreement between the Muscatine CSD and the City of Muscatine, Muscatine County, for the dedication of the right-of-way for part of Block 8 of the South Park addition in the city. What are the wishes of the board?
I make a motion to approve the agreement between Muscatine CSD and the City of Muscatine, Muscatine County for the dedication of the right-of-way for part of Block 8 of the South Park addition in the city.
I second.
Lindsay? Sure.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
And this kind of finalizes the process. The city approved those last pieces on last Thursday night. It has been a long process, and this last piece is, as we get all the different parcel put together, the bike path, they have to have right-of-way access to maintain that. So this does that for them, and then we should be able to move forward with the final agreement with them. So it's exciting. A lot of work has gone into this to get us to this point. So looking forward to the next steps for sure.
Yeah. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those of you who are in favor of approving the agreement between the Muscatine Community School District and the City of Muscatine, Muscatine County for the dedication of the right-of-way for part of Block 8 of the South Park addition in the city, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, thank you. Next item on our agenda is to approve the change order for the MCSD controlled entrances for $32,266.94. What are the wishes of the board?
I make a motion to approve the change order for Muscatine Community School District controlled entrances for $32,266.94.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
May I ask Mr. Castle or Mr. Nienhaus, whichever one of them is, what's a 45-minute rated door?
So when you're dealing with fire code, there's different ratings. There's a 30-minute, 45-minute, hour rating, 2-hour rating. So with that fire code in at Madison and Grant, because of the wall construction that's set in those entrances, we have to have a fire rated door that goes along with it. So it's a metal frame door.
So if basically it's a door that if there was a fire, it would be okay for 45 minutes, and then after that it's
yes,
gone.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay.
And why, no offense, but why wasn't that noticed before this period of time?
That's a great question. I don't know. We thought that the doors that were in existence were enough. When it came back from the city, that they were only 30 minutes and we needed 45 minutes.
Yeah. And where are you going to put the additional parking spots?
So those are going to go south of the existing parking lot towards the new parking lot on the side.
Okay.
So there's going to be existing spots there. There are additional spots there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Okay, so those of you are in favor of approving the change order for the MCSD controlled entrances for $32,266.94. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is to approve the purchase of 1,000 Acer Chromebooks from Bloom for the price of $332,080. What are the wishes of the board?
I move that we approve the purchase of 1,000 Acer Chromebooks from Blum for the price of $332,080, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Do these replace anything, Rich? You have to step up to the microphone.
Well, and I can answer some of that, Mike, as kids roll up, like, so the ninth grade kids, they'll have had devices for a number of years, right? Those become outdated, so we know we're going to have to purchase new ones. They'll carry those with them through high school, right? So as second grade comes in, they get a new batch of, so these are the grades where they get that new one, and then those carry forward. So every year, we're kind of purchasing that new batch for those kids, and then they're hanging on to them until that next transition period.
And then at the end of the time, those 1,000 that are going out, what happens with those?
Depends the condition they're in. Sometimes by that point, they're past their prime. There are some we'll hold on to as loaners. If one gets damaged, then, they can use that. We use them for parts. So there's various things. By the time they get that far, the Chromebooks don't have a lot of value for resale, but we can certainly use the chargers, a lot of different pieces from them as well.
And I know the answer to this stuff, but the things that do have, and Rich, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or Clint, if you know, if they do have a value, or if we do think that they could have a resale value, then we auction those off.
Correct.
Do we have a date for that auction, or how do we notify people that they're available?
They come up occasionally. I think we have to put that on the website and different places. We just did some auction stuff for kitchen supplies. As we're moving out of the central kitchen to the new centralized kitchen, we've got some surplus there. So there's a website we post out there.
Did we get much of a response from that?
I don't have an answer for you.
And he's shaking his head no. Well, which means to me, as in how much, was it advertised or anything? I just barely saw something.
I would say the auctions, even back in the day when you'd run something in the paper, and I mean, it's just, you don't get a lot of response from it. We probably get more response now that we can put it out on a website that has more access to people from across the state and the Midwest. You're more likely to get somebody to pick those up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. Well, all of you are in favor to approve the purchase of 1,000 Acer Chromebooks from Bloom for the price of $332,080. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. So next item is to approve the purchase of 4 Bluebird Vision school buses from School Bus Sales for a total of $576,727. What are the wishes of the board?
I make a motion to approve the purchase of 4 Bluebird Vision school buses from School Bus Sales for the total of $576,727.
I second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'm sure there is, so would you please come up? Or is this something your counterpart over here needs to work at too?
I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Just clarification, because a lot of people that, I don't know, there aren't probably a lot of people that will actually watch the school board meetings, but there are a lot of people that will say, look at this number and say, oh, we're spending $500,000 on buses, but we can't spend it on something else. And maybe Tom might be the person to answer this. Where does this money come from?
So yes, this is a categorical. We cannot spend this money on other things. We can't spend it on salaries. We can't spend it on things like that. This is set aside out of our PEPL capital project expenditures. We generally set aside a certain amount of money each year for vehicle purchases and technology purchases and other categorical things. So this is where this money comes from.
So this is pre-designated money that it'll only be spent on building improvements or capital projects or buses or something along those lines.
Correct, sir.
Thank you.
Hey,
So
my
it's
question,
basically, it's not part of the general fund. right?
It is not, yes, it is not general fund money.
And these are to replace,
So, yes, so these will replace our 13s, 15s area buses. We're going to keep a couple of those. Those are one of our few diesel buses. We have a couple drivers that will only drive diesel buses, so trying to keep them happy. But we're getting to the point now where we're going to be in that, if we can buy 3-ish buses a year, we can keep our fleet at no older than 11 years old, which is much easier to maintain. So we're getting to that. The bodies hold up better. They're worth more money when we trade them in. So.
what do these buses run on?
So all 4 of these buses are propane buses.
Now, my question, of course, you've heard me say this, and I will say it again, and that has to do with, at some point in time, are we going to be able to get to the idea of electric or hybrid?
So yes, and I've thought about this a couple times. Right now, the upfront cost for an electric bus is somewhere around $400,000. There for one bus. Now you do have some rebates and some other things that are a part of that, but additionally, the battery life is not super great in those right now as well. And in the winter, that battery life decreases even more. So I have some hesitation. Our sales representative for the state also has some trepidation on selling us electric buses right now. Not saying that won't come down the pipe, but right now the propane is our best option as far as limiting greenhouse gases and noise levels and pollution in the atmosphere for what our current infrastructure is.
Thank you. That helps a lot, knowing that part of it. But I just also want to make sure that each year, as you're looking at it, see how better that area and market is going to be, because I can't imagine it not getting better.
Yeah, I see us moving to electric vehicles in other aspects of our fleet before we would do buses, but not saying that won't be the case coming up.
All right, thank you.
And Ryan, I would also just mention, as we talk about the replacement cycle of these buses, our transportation department, our mechanics do an amazing job at maintaining what we have, but at some point we do have to be proactive and look at updating that fleet.
Yeah, with a fleet our size, we've had 3 inspections in a row where we haven't had any 30-day notifications or out of service, which is unheard of for a fleet our size.
And if I remember right, Ryan, I mean, you can, please correct me. I mean, we have been doing this almost every year.
Yeah,
like,
we
to be
generally buy
proactive.
3 to 4 buses a year. Last year I only bought 1.
Yes,
This year, I mean, I want to buy 4. If you guys told me, hey, you can only buy 3, we'd get by with that. But, obviously I'd like to buy all 4.
And this is off the subject of this kind of bus, but I know at one point we were talking about the smaller type of 12-passenger ones and stuff.
So we do have 2 small, what they call micro bird buses. So we have 1 wheelchair-equipped small bus. We have 1 regular small bus in the fleet that will run for preschool routes in the middle of the day, or if we have any smaller groups that are going. We use the 1 18-passenger bus for ag a lot. So yeah, we have those.
Okay.
For these 4 buses, how many passengers?
So so of the 4 buses, 3 of them are what you would consider a regular bus. It holds 72 passengers. Now 72, though, it would be elementary school students, 3 to a seat, not super comfy. And then one of these buses is a wheelchair lift equipped bus, so that capacity drops to somewhere around 30.
How often do we fill those buses with 72 passengers?
We probably get on a normal day, we try to cap that capacity at 50 to 55 kids for a regular route. Just 3 people to a seat and trying to buckle kids in, it is a kind of a mess. Field trips will get 50 to 60 relatively normally. We try not to get over 60 just because of seating comfort for kids. Especially depending on how far they're going. If somebody's going to Davenport or Cedar Rapids, we don't want to put 72 kids on a bus.
You also have to consider when you're doing your daily route how long the kids are on the bus. So
Correct.
you have to have enough buses that you can get them on the bus and off the bus within 45 minutes, correct?
It's an hour for elementary school students and an hour and 15 for elementary and middle school, an hour 15 for high school.
So that has something to do with it as well.
Right.
So there's a need for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we put on about 360,000 miles a year on our buses. So
As a fleet.
as a fleet, correct? Yeah, as a fleet. Not on each bus.
My mind was getting boggled there for a moment. Yeah.
Any more questions for Ryan? Thank you again, Ryan. So, any more discussion or, okay. So,
Out of it, Ryan.
all those of you who are in favor of approving the purchase of 4 Bluebird Vision school buses from the school bus sales for a total of $576,727, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. So next item is to approve the purchase of a 2023 F-450 dump truck from Willowbrook Ford for $77,696. What are the wishes of the board?
I will make the motion to approve the purchase of a 2023 F-450 dump truck from Willowbrook Ford for $77,696.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, and I see Ryan is ready here to answer any question if anybody has.
Do we already have a dump truck, or is this a brand new purchase?
We have our F-650 dump truck lift thing that we've had for 17 years, give or take. It is recently undergone some issues that would result in what I would see as it's a $10,000 repair bill for the part.
I'm guessing Tom would have told us this has been depreciated out 10 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's time to be replaced.
Yeah,
All right.
we can't get parts for the lift anymore. The brake, a $10,000 part for the brakes is just not efficient for us.
Thank you.
What type of fuel does this dump?
So this is a gas-powered. I have 4 different bids that came in from gas to diesel, ranging from the 77,000 to about 103,000. This seems to fit our needs the best. This will also get fitted with a snow plow and a salter for the winter.
Any more questions? Okay, those of you who are in favor of approving the purchase of 2023 F-450 dump truck from Willowbrook Ford for $77,696, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. Next item is to approve the purchase of a 2023 Chevrolet Express passenger van from Ed Morris in the amount of $49,924. What are the wishes of the board?
Approve the purchase of 2023 Chevrolet Express passenger van from Ed Morse in the amount of $49,924, please.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
When it says a passenger van, I'm assuming this is an 8-passenger van? Or how big?
10.
10?
Okay. But, so again, this is the second year in a row where we've ordered vans and they are not being built.
Right.
This is just, we're getting really lucky that there's a van available right now.
This is actually the one I was trying to get to you on, was the idea of this van business, so.
Yeah. So, and remember, per state law, we cannot use vans as route buses.
Gotcha.
Without doing a number of additional things, which just is not very economical for us.
This is, it's more activity-based.
Yeah, it's an activity bus. So again, we're looking at, we have, out of our 6 activity buses, or vans, we have 2 that have 120,000 miles on them. They're nearing the end of their lifespan. We need to replace them. So whenever we can get a delivery, we want to take advantage of that.
Any more questions?
This is
Not
actually
yet, not yet.
cheaper than the vans that I had ordered by about $1,000 as well. Just
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. We really appreciate that. Okay, those of you who are in favor of approving the purchase of a 2023 Chevrolet Express passenger van from Ed Morris in the amount of $49,924, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. With that, we move into our discussion and information part of our agenda. And item A, we have second reading of policies 802, use of school property and equipment, 805, crisis management and response plan, 900.3, use of school facilities during school hours. Any discussion about any of those policies? And as you know, we go through 3 readings of every policy, and during or in between meetings, if anybody also still have any question, please make sure you connect with Daphne on any of this. No? Okay, it looks like no questions, so we move into item B. We have review administration regulations and electronic forms. Item 1, 105.R1, anti-bullying, anti-harassment, administrative regulations. Item 2, 503.9E1, report of students' disclosure of identity. Item 3, 503.9E2, request to update student identity. Item 4, 602.1R1, objection of instructional and library materials, reconsideration of instructional and library materials, administrative regulations. And item 5, 601.29E1, prohibits students from accessing instructional and library materials, request form. Any question about any of the administration regulations?
What I would like to offer is, I think this would be helpful if, like, when we're talking about our handbook area, that maybe where these subjects are at, that we make reference to that these are available, you know what I'm saying, so that people know how to, I don't know if that means a hyperlink or whatever, so they can get it right off. The internet, easy for them to be able to then download or whatever.
And these still require 3 readings as well, right?
These
Even
are
though the regulations.
regulations, so no.
No?
Because you don't approve the admin regs, but you review them. What you're seeing is a lot of the initial updates based on this last legislative
Right.
session. I will tell you, we're waiting on the Department of Ed to provide some guidance, which has not been forthcoming. So some of this, I know the IASB is starting to move forward where they can. So I think, we've had some of these pieces in place, like the objection of instructional and library materials. We had the form where parents could sign off on objectionable materials that they didn't want their students to have access to. But the laws have created some minor changes, so you'll see those reflected in there. But there'll still be some more updates probably to this, so we'll bring those back to you as they come. The one I'm probably still the most concerned about is there was a big piece on discipline, and we do need guidance on that, and we aren't getting it yet. So as school gets closer, we know it impacts our next topic on the handbook, but I know they've had a change in leadership again there, so everyone's waiting.
With that too, I don't remember from looking at these, did they have like a date or something at the bottom, similar like how we do for like handbook and stuff, so we know
When
when
we've
the last it was
revised them
up?
and updated, yes.
So then that way, if we end up having more information that comes to us, we at least showing by this date.
Yep.
But that's what we're using. Thank you.
Any other question? Okay, well, moving forward, we move to item C, which is the draft of 2023-24 student handbook. And what we have right now is the second revision. Basically, as Clint mentioned, you know, a lot of things we are still like living in a limbo right now because the state needs to send us some sort of guidelines and so on. Obviously, we need, as a board, to approve this next month in August. I see this document as a fluid document that can be changed from time to time. And we did have a meeting, 3 board members, Mike, Karen, myself, participated in this discussion, and we had really a very nice discussion around the student handbook and the items there and different pieces of the student handbook, and I will open that for any more discussions or questions, so please feel free to ask.
I'll just share if that's okay. So, of course, as you mentioned, some of these reviews happen, not at this table, so questions can be asked, but just so that people are aware, I know some have reached out to us, and I think that that's great, so please keep doing that if you have any questions or concerns as you're seeing these. But one of a few things that the committee will be looking at, hopefully soon, is the cell phone policy section, just requesting some formatting to really make it clear what those expectations are, especially at the high school level. It doesn't read as clearly to me as the middle school level. And then student appearance too. I think we've said at this table a few times that if something's in the handbook, it needs to be clear so that we can actually enforce it. Otherwise, maybe it doesn't need to be there. So looking at some of those. And then our child access procedures too, not a lot of clarity, I guess, on the circumstances that are addressed building to building. And so I have that in here. And making sure that we have the right designees in place for some of the procedures that are addressed.
I will build on that. And first of all, as in how John said, it was a good meeting from the standpoint that we do realize this handbook had been around for a while. And just know that the draft that we had for that day that we used was 60 pages, and we've gotten it down 10 pages. And so that in itself is a thank you, you know, right there. And I can tell you, along with that, is saying about the clarity, and that is, there's still a lot of, I call it double talk, just from the standpoint that we may have something about board policy, and then like right afterwards or right above it, it will have then more of what I believe you called more like practices, and you know, that you guys use administratively. So it just then the way it flows makes it like if I was a parent trying to read it, it would be too difficult for me to want to be able to get through it, which is kind of like when you talk about those hyperlinks and stuff. I would prefer to see it have like, for example, it actually has more of how your policies would be, not the board policies, but then have the board policy as that hyperlink so that they can kind of get how, oh, that's their wording for it. Now this is how we're translating it, you know, on there. And because there was, for example, on page 30, there actually is a listing of some of the items that says board policies on discipline. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them that are actually listed in here. The others are not. And so that's what I'm talking about, making some of that consistent on how that takes and works with it. And then from there, we are going to get, I know, some further discussion on is with the cell phone usage. I had quite a few parents and discussions about how that should be done, and as you say, broken down from the standpoint between, needless to say, grade school compared to junior high, and then by the time it gets to high school, what that does for all of that. So I'm sure we'll be having some more on that. But my main biggie one is actually about appeals. Because, like, for example, on the search and seizure part of it, it has a kind of a area all there that's talked about what all search and seizure, but it doesn't say anything about what if a kid says, no, I don't want you to take and search my backpack or whatever. What happens then? What are the type of steps? And then what are like the appeal things? Actually, in the area that is for good conduct for all the sports area and that, those pages are laid out actually pretty nice. But when you get to some of the other areas, it doesn't really consistently tell us how appeal process and stuff works. So you might want to take a look at how they do it on the sports area and maybe do some of that other on there. That's my take on everything. Thank you.
And a lot of that might happen in that behavior talk. All of it's been crossed out for now because we don't know what that needs to look like. And I think it's like the 27th of this month is the only educational opportunity I've seen to understand that legislation. Is that all that there is so far? Like a webinar or something?
There has not been much. Whatever is out there is just a summary of the legislation, and it really, again, those things haven't been defined by the Department of Ed yet. So,
As Karen mentioned, we're still at 50 pages, and I know that personally, I think that if we're going to have a student handbook, I don't know that it makes that much of a difference. I know that we combined 3 different levels. I know that we've combined probably more handbooks than just 3 when we pulled in the different elementaries. The more that we can get to where a student is just a student at Muscatine Community School District, that would be, in my opinion, would be great. So anytime that we have a chance to simplify things and just make it apply to everybody regardless of age, I would like to see that part of it. I do agree that our due process should be the same, whether it's for sports or whether it's for anything. Due process, how a person questions or says, how do I enforce my rights? That needs to be the same for across the board, no matter what the issue is, in my opinion. So if we can get that done, if it differs in the handbook, then that needs to be changed, I believe. So I look forward to the continued talks.
How many people are on the committee that are working to get this in one document?
Like probably 10, a dozen.
Yeah, roughly 10,
10, around
I
10
would say.
Yeah.
It was all levels.
It was a good representation of, and like I said, the conversation was good, but at the same time, it was trying to figure out where some of those narrowing is. And I got to give Daphne a lot of credit because she's the one in the end has to kind of take and put all of this into some kind of a format, so it's looking at. And so I will not take and do my English type of thing where you dot your I's and T's type of thing, because we got a long way to go before we get to all that. But thank you, Daphne, for all your work with it.
But I think that kind of gets to where we're going to, that too many eyes, we're still merging too many things and adding and taking away and doing all of that. It might take one set of eyes to go through and give a real clean version, and you've done some of that for us already, and that makes it much easier to look at and know what's there and missing. So I think if one person owns that piece of it, it might actually be a more complete document than we think.
Yeah.
So we're getting distracted maybe by all of the things.
Any more discussion about that? And I just want to remind everybody again that this document for sure gonna continue to be a fluid document. I'm sure, but no matter what we do, we need to revisit and revisit and revisit from time to time. So thank you to all who are involved with this process, and hopefully we'll have much better version by August, by our meeting in August. So thank you. Before I move into the announcements, meetings, and events, I would like to mention something. Sometimes we fail to really talk also about the positive things. I was looking at the information on our district, and I know our finance department received an award for outstanding financial reporting from the Association of School Business Officials International. So Tom, thanks for your hard work, you and your department. So please convey our appreciation to your department. And it's important to start celebrating all these good, positive things that we usually.
And John, I was actually, before you went to that, I appreciate you doing that because that was on my list. And Tom is very humble and doesn't want necessarily the recognition, but his department, Daphne, spent a ton of time putting this together. And really, when you look at it, so we have an audit, and we have that external audit. We have an audit committee that looks through that audit of local community members, right? And then really what this is members across the country that are looking at all of these pieces as well and saying from that kind of larger perspective, giving their kind of seal of approval as well. So it is a ton of effort on Tom's part and his department's part, but it's just another indicator that great things are happening here. Again, credit to Tom on that. So I wanted to make sure and so I appreciate you saying that. It is a big deal.
Thank you. So with that, we move into the announcements, meetings, and events. August 1st, 2023, Riverbend Food Bank, 2900 Mulberry Avenue. August 14, 2023, Community Conversations, 6 p.m., City Hall at lower level. So just a reminder, we go back to this community conversation starting August again. August 14, 2023, regular board meeting at 7 p.m. here at the City Hall. August 14 to 15, 2023, Muskie University, new teacher in service. August 16 to 18, 2023, all teacher in service. August 21, 22, 23, Muskie Transition Days. August 23rd, 2023, first day for students. And September 4th, 2023, Labor Day, no school. Any more announcement or any news to share with us?
Yes, so it's the time of year where we celebrate our Muskie softball players because they're at it again. So tomorrow night, Tuesday, 7 o'clock, they're playing Iowa City Liberty. And I believe this punches their ticket to state if they win that game. So this might also be one of the last games at Kent Stein. So you should go down and support. All of the tickets have to be purchased online. So I think it's linked on the Facebook page. Tony's shaking his head yes.
Any other announcement?
And John, Lindsay just mentioned this too, the Riverbend Food Bank, the food pantry, you'll notice, so we don't do a food pantry in July. And you'll notice that this one is August 1st, which is a different date than what we typically do. And we are trying to move them away from our the day after our board meeting, just because a lot of work goes into that board meeting, and then the next day we're jumping right into that. So kind of getting it off that schedule of board meetings is helpful for us. So that is a change in date, but one that we'll stick with as we kind of the first of the month kind of as we roll forward.
This adds another one to mind too. The weekly meal pickup for the summer program is moving to Muscatine High School this week. So that'll be a change in location as well.
All good news and positive things. That's really good to hear. So, anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn, please?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Those of you who are in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Good night, everybody.